But the news was just announced that WNBA TV ratings are down more than 50% since Caitlin Clark's injury. And it was also reported that the Indiana Fever television viewership is also down over.
The WNBA just got hit with a harsh dose of reality. With Caitlin Clark sidelined due to injury, the league's viewership has taken a massive hit, plummeting by a staggering 55%. The numbers speak for themselves, and they're sounding alarm bells across the league as officials scramble to address the fallout.
3%. Now, I know a lot of us were expecting some sort of dip since Caitlin Clark has been out with injury, but I don't think all of us were expecting the entire viewership of the entire.
This is what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. Before we dive into the shocking numbers, let me ask you this. Is the WNBA finally waking up to how much they need Caitlin Clark? Or are they still going to play it off like this massive drop is just a coincidence? Sound off in the comments. I want to hear what you think.
Caitlin Clark for the New York Liberty game. Stephanie White made made a statement on that today.
Well. Look who's suddenly worried about ratings. The WNBA. This is the same league that spent most of last season either ignoring Caitlin Clark's impact or trying to minimize it. Now, they're staring down numbers that would send any executive into panic mode. And honestly, it feels like poetic justice. Let's break down the disaster. A 55% drop rate in viewership for nationally televised games without Clark. That's not a dip. That's a full-on nosedive.
And it looked like Caitlin Clark has suffered yet another hard foul, and the referees failed to make a call.
To put it in perspective, games with Caitlin Clark averaged roll with a 1, 8 million viewers. Games without her, just 847,000. Barely half. Now sure, some will say, oh, she's just a popular player. But come on, this isn't just about popularity. It's about the WNBA's failure to build sustained interest around the league as a whole. And whose fault is that? Certainly ton notin, Caitlin's.
Step back triple.
Remember when the league and certain media voices kept lecturing Caitlin Clark's fans, telling them to appreciate real basketball and support other players? Remember when they called her new fans fake, claiming they only tuned in because she was white, not because she was incredibly talented? Yeah. How's that working out now?
I felt like mishandled so many things with the WNBA last season, and specifically with Caitlin Clark and her fan base. And that's one thing when you start thinking about how many people stopped watching when Caitlin Clark got injured. A lot of people stopped watching because they are boycotting the WNBA. They don't want to give viewership to any other teams or any other players, whether they like other players on the team or not, because of how the media and the league itself has handled Caitlin Clark and how they have treated her fans. Caitlin Clark and Indiana Fever fans have been called.
The irony here is absolutely rich. The WNBA spent so much time downplaying Caitlin Clark's impact, insisting the league was just fine without her, that they completely missed the massive opportunity she brought with her. Instead of embracing the millions of new fans she attracted, they pushed them away. Instead of using her spotlight to lift up other players, they created this strange, divisive narrative where supporting Clark somehow meant being against everyone else. And now, look where we are. Clark gets injured, and suddenly the WNBA is getting a crash course in what happens when you fail to nurture your fan base. These numbers aren't just embarrassing, they're a warning shot. The only question is, will the league finally listen or stay too stubborn to learn?
Down. And this tweet from Christine Brennan really stuck out to me. She said one player gets injured and more than half the TV audience for the entire league disappears. Has any other athlete ever had that kind of impact on a sport? Golf without Tiger definitely dropped precipitously on occasion, but not like this. A truly remarkable sports story continues. Now, we've gone over the Caitlin Clark effect, and I've also been one who has compared Caitlin to the likes of Tiger Woods just purely on her impact that she's had had on the WNBA. But this news is alarming for the league, and it's alarming for the league because this is such a crucial year for the WNBA. At the end of this season, the WNBA will go into CBA negotiations. If negotiations go well, then every single player in the WNBA has a much better chance of making so much more in their next.
Let's break down what these ratings really reveal. The Indiana Fever, Caitlin Clark's team, saw a whopping 53% drop in viewership during her absence. But here's the kicker. It's not just the Fever. The entire league took a hit with a nationally televised WNBA games down 55% in. That tells you something huge. Clark wasn't just boosting her own team's visibility, she was elevating the entire league's profile. Think about that. One player gets injured, and nearly half of the league's TV audience vanishes. Has any other athlete in any sport ever had that kind of immediate impact? Christine Brennan compared it to Tiger Woods in golf, but even Tiger's absence didn't cause this kind of dramatic collapse overnight. This is what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket, and you don't even realize it. The WNBA was so focused on proving they didn't need Caitlin Clark, they never put a plan in place to keep her fans connected to the broader league. They were too proud to acknowledge that this rookie, second-year player, brought something truly special. Something they should have been celebrating, not minimizing.
Well, the next two times that we see Indiana, I fully expect this game to look a lot different. They're trying to figure out pieces right now that are going to make the team.
Let's talk about the games that have happened without Caitlin Clark. Take the Liberty versus Sky matchup featuring Angel Reese. It pulled in around 100,000 viewers. By pre-Clark WNBA standards, that's not terrible. But compared to the Iowa numbers Clark was generating, it's a big drop-off. And let's be honest, the production quality isn't helping. The Amazon Prime and NBA TV broadcasts have been, to put it kindly, underwhelming. When Clark was playing, fans were willing to put up with the low-quality streams because the basketball was exciting and worth watching. Without her, that tolerance is gone. Now let's address the elephant in the room, Angel Reese. The media spent months hyping up a rivalry between Clark and Reese, trying to sell the idea that they were equals in terms of star power and drawing ability. But the ratings tell a different story. Reese is a talented athlete, no question. But she's not moving the needle the way Clark does. And that's not a knock on Reese, it's just the reality.
We've got a bigger sample size of the ratings without Caitlin Clark, and they're pretty bad. Well, I don't want to say the ratings are bad, but they're just down a lot, a whole lot. So we're going to look at that, and wow, I saw those numbers and was like, holy hell. Kathy Engelbert, WNBA commissioner, you got your ears on? I mean, what's the F around and find out? You're finding out. Rat cheer and rat now. Yeah.
The WNBA's handling of Caitlin Clark's injury has been interesting to watch. Coach Stephanie White is taking the smart approach, being cautious and prioritizing Clark's long-term health over any short-term wins. Clark's been out since May 24 with a strained left quad after already dealing with an earlier ankle injury. The Fever clearly aren't willing to risk her future for a few extra games now, and that's the right call. But you can bet the league office is sweating every day she's not on the court. Clark's absence has exposed something the WNBA can't ignore. Its star power is incredibly thin. When removing one player causes half your national audience to vanish, that's not just a crisis. It's a sign of an unstable foundation. The league needs to take a long, hard look at how it develops and markets its other stars, because right now they're learning a painfully expensive lesson about what happens when you put all your promotional eggs in one basket and don't even realize it.
Come to Caitlin Clark. Bruh, how we one game away for the start of the season, and we have already Caitlin Clark getting fouled extremely hard. Look back at the referee like, damn, you didn't just see me get annihilated in
The
it.
timing of this ratings crash couldn't be worse for the WNBA. With CBA negotiations looming at the end of the season, these numbers aren't just embarrassing. They're going to directly influence the conversation. We're talking about player salaries, benefits, and working conditions, all of which are tied to league revenue. And when that revenue drops by 55% just because one player is injured, that's a glaring vulnerability that can't be ignored. It's also important to note, Clark's injury came just as the league was finally starting to build some momentum.
Under the sun. They have been called out by players in the WNBA. The media has, I mean, you've seen it. We've talked about it here. You can't miss it on social media every single day. There's some media personality saying something bad about Caitlin Clark's fans, calling the fans names, saying that they are not there for basketball. They're just following Caitlin because she's white, or they're trying to push a certain agenda. Like, the narrative surrounding the biggest fan base to ever come to the WNBA have been actually insane. And then it goes as far as to the first game of the season, which was at Indiana against the Chicago Sky. Right after that game, they opened an investigation once again into the fans, where they found nothing, but the damage had already been done at that point. If some of these things happen just one time here and there, or there's one certain media personality who's just always saying these kind of things, then whatever. I feel like fans as a whole can be like, okay, whatever, this person is just a hater. But this is something that has happened over and over and over again, and over time it starts chipping away at how much you're going to actually care and want to support an organization if they can.
The season started off strong, record-breaking attendance, surging viewership, and major corporate sponsors finally taking notice. The WNBA was having a moment. Then Clark gets hurt. And suddenly, it's a harsh return to reality. The most frustrating part? This was entirely preventable. If the WNBA had spent the past year focusing on how to turn Clark's fans into league fans, instead of lecturing them about what real basketball fandom should look like, they might not be in this mess. If they had used Clark's spotlight to uplift other players, instead of fueling this weird.
Before that last attempt, as another turnover, Atlanta on a 10-3, make it 12.
This weird zero-sum game, where supporting Caitlin Clark somehow meant you were disrespecting everyone else. They had a real chance to build something sustainable, but instead, we got a flood of think pieces about how Clark's fans were problematic, how they were only tuning in because of race, and how they supposedly didn't understand basketball. We got players throwing shade about the attention Clark was getting. We got media personalities acting like the league was better off before she arrived. Well, congratulations, you got your wish. Clark is out, and now we're all seeing what the WNBA looks like without her. Spoiler alert, it looks a whole lot like the WNBA from 5 years ago, when hardly anyone was watching, and players were scraping by on near minimum salaries. And just to make things messier, now we've got the Sophie Cunningham situation adding another layer of controversy to the pile.
Very familiar with her game.
And Jaylen Brown is one of those players who scored 21 points.
Sophie Cunningham has been dealing with her own injury issues, and with her sidelined alongside Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever are basically running with a worse skeleton crew. Of their most marketable players, Cunningham appears close to returning, but the team is wisely being cautious with her too. Still, that means the KO ratings freefall continues, and the league's most valuable assets remain off the floor. What's most revealing, though, is how the WNBA is responding to this crisis. There's been totally no official acknowledgement of the ratings collapse, no public strategy to keep fans engaged during Clark's absence, no campaign to spotlight other players or reassure sponsors, just business as usual. And that's exactly the wrong approach. This isn't a minor blip, it's a full-blown BACKLASH crisis that demands urgency, transparency, and a real plan. Instead, the league is doing what it's always done, burying its head in the sand and hoping things magically turn around.
These are two teams that are contenders.
PG for three, as we mentioned it.
The production quality issues absolutely deserve attention. When Clark was playing, fans were willing to overlook the subpar broadcasts because the on-court product was compelling enough to carry the experience. But now that she's out, those flaws are impossible to ignore. Fans who are used to the polished professional broadcasts of the NFL or NBA aren't going to stick around for shaky camera work, weak commentary, and inconsistent presentation, especially when the star attraction isn't on the floor. This is where the WNBA's lack of serious investment in its own product becomes painfully clear. For too long, the league has been focused on simply surviving, not thriving. The result? Broadcasts that often feel minor league, not just in visual quality, but in commentary and overall presentation. The Dream versus Fever game without Clark is the perfect example. Fans might put up with a rough broadcast to watch Clark torch the sky, but they're not going to tune in just to watch a sloppy feed of a mid-tier matchup.
Behind the back, Clark.
The Dream are playing without any marquee stars. That's just the reality. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark's stats before her injury make it easy to understand why fans were tuning in. She was averaging 19 points, 9.3 assists, and 6 rebounds per game. She even notched a triple-double this season. Clark wasn't just performing at an elite level, she was doing it with flair. Her assist numbers stand out the most. She was elevating everyone around her, which is the hallmark of a truly great player. But beyond that, Clark's impact goes far beyond the stat sheet. She brings something intangible to the court, that elusive it factor that makes even casual fans stop and watch. She delivers highlight reel plays and creates the kind of moments people talk about the next day. Very few athletes in any sport have that kind of presence, and the WNBA is starting to feel just how much that matters. Before her injury, Clark had played 183 consecutive games between college and the WNBA. That level of durability speaks volumes. She's not someone who sits out unless it's serious. If she's missing time, it means the injury is real, and the team is absolutely right to be cautious.
She is the first in double figures. She has 11, 4 for 7 from the field. Pow returning.
The Fever's 4-5 record without their star player is actually quite respectable, all things considered. But from a business standpoint, wins and losses mean little if no one is watching. At the end of the day, the WNBA is an entertainment product, and without its biggest attraction, the league is clearly struggling to capture attention. What will be truly telling is how the league responds when Clark returns. Will they continue trying to downplay her influence? Or will they finally recognize her for what she is, the goose that lays the golden eggs, and start treating her as such? Smart money says they'll try to do a bit of both.
Sophie Cunningham deciding to reset things.
Publicly, the league may continue to downplay Clark's importance, while privately doing everything possible to keep her healthy and on the court. But that kind of cognitive dissonance isn't sustainable in the long run. The upcoming game against the Liberty could have been a marquee moment. With New York playing the best basketball in the league, a Clark versus Sabrina Ionescu showdown would have been must-see TV. Instead, we're likely facing another low-rated matchup that casual fans won't bother tuning in for. This entire situation has become a case study in mismanaging your most valuable asset. The WNBA had lightning in a bottle with Clark's rookie season, but rather than harness it, they spent their energy trying to convince people the lightning wasn't all that bright. Now, with her sidelined, they're left sitting in the dark, wondering where all the electricity went. The lesson here is simple. When a transcendent talent brings unprecedented attention to your league, you embrace it. You don't fight it, you don't diminish it, and you absolutely don't alienate the fans who follow it. The WNBA failed that test spectacularly, and now they're paying the price. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert must be staring at the ratings, wondering how things unraveled so fast. One minute, the league was soaring with record-breaking viewership and attendance. The next, it slipped back into pre-Clark levels of obscurity. That's the danger of building your entire business model around one player while refusing to admit it. And the most frustrating part? This didn't have to happen.
So second attempt, same spot, same result for Matt Caldwell. That's Caitlin Clark, top of the key, and drains her first triple.
All of this could have been avoided if the WNBA had spent the past year building up other players instead of tearing Clark down, if they had embraced new fans instead of lecturing them, if they had invested in better production and smarter marketing. They might not be in this position, but they didn't, and now they're learning a hard truth. When you take your audience for granted, half of them vanish the moment your star gets injured. That's not a sustainable business model, and it's certainly not a blueprint for long-term success. The WNBA now stands at a crossroads. They can keep pretending Clark's impact is overstated, that the ratings collapse is just a temporary dip, and that everything will magically fix itself when she returns. Or they can face reality, acknowledge who's driving their momentum, and start building a league that thrives because of her, not in spite of her. Given the league's track record, I'm not optimistic about which path they'll take. But these ratings don't lie, and they're getting harder to ignore by the day. So there it is. The WNBA's reality check served cold. When you spend a year alienating the fan base of your biggest star, you can't be shocked when they tune out. The numbers speak louder than any PR spin ever could. Will the league finally wake up? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more unfiltered sports truth.